All right, well, good evening, everyone, citizens and city council. I'd like to call the September 19th, 2023 meeting of the West Richland City Council to order at 6 p.m. And before we call the roll, I'll ask Stephanie to read the hybrid ground rules for our meeting this evening.
All right, thank you. Tonight's meeting will be held in person with a virtual meeting component. If you are participating virtually, please make sure the name shown at the bottom of your video view is the name you would like the mayor to use. You can change this by right-clicking on your video view and selecting Rename. Audience members present in the council chambers will be called upon first during public comment periods. Those participating remotely should virtually raise your hand if you wish to speak. To virtually raise your hand, click on Participants and then click on Raise Hand. If you are participating by phone only, press *9 to raise your hand. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. All right, roll call. Brent Gary.
Here.
Fred Brink.
Here.
David Fetto.
Here.
May Hayes.
Here.
Kate Moran.
Present.
John Smart.
Here.
Ken Stoker.
Here.
And I don't know if I've heard from Councilmember Bloom.
Yeah, nor do I recall his conversation as to whether he was going to be able to be here or not, but it's not like Councilmember Bloom not to show up to a city council meeting. So I'll, after you're done with your recall, after you're done with your roll call, I'll ask for his excuse. Okay, so we're good to go. So may I have a motion to excuse Councilman Bloom this evening?
So moved. Second.
Favor say aye.
Aye.
Like sign. Thank you. And if he shows up, I will apologize all over myself. Okay, and council, with that, the Pledge of Allegiance, I'll ask Mayor Pro Tem Brink to lead us in this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Brink. Much appreciated. Council, the agenda is before you this evening. Are there any changes to the agenda this evening? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the agenda as presented. Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Like opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you, council. And right under the wire, we have Miss Rebecca from Ed's Disposal has made it in this evening. So I'm going to ask Roscoe to introduce Rebecca and Ed's Disposal and what the presentation is going to consist of.
Yeah, council. So if you remember, it's probably been, I was going to say a couple years, but we haven't done this because of COVID. It's been at least 3 years. So I think it was 5 years ago. We had Derek Dietrich from Ed's Disposal come gave a presentation to council about our solid waste contract, kind of gave an overview and really focused on where recycling was as an industry. And if you remember, our franchise agreement has several different toggle switches that council can elect to do curbside recycling. You can do organics, green waste, all that. All those services are available in our franchise agreement. You just as a council have to elect to toggle them on. And the little caveat with some of this stuff is once you toggle it on, the toggle may be on for a while before you can toggle it back off. So anyway, so we invited Ed's Disposal to come back, give us an update since it's been a while. So Rebecca was gracious. I thought she was going to be on the Blue Bridge for a while, but she made it. And so she's going to do that, kind of go over where we're at with our franchise agreement, services provided, touch on recycling, and kind of touch on things that are going on. So with that, Rebecca, thank you.
Thank you, Roscoe. Boy, drive safe out there. 3 accidents on the way over here. It's like, whew. Anyway, good evening for those of you who have not met me. I'm Rebecca Franczyk. I work with Ed's Disposal. So thank you for having me tonight. I am here, let's see, and you're going to do the slides for me, right? Thanks. I am here to give you an update on our garbage services, the current recycling market, and a look at future legislation that will drive Basin's decision and quite possibly your service in the future. I'm going to be taking questions at the end of this presentation, but if you have any further follow-up questions or if you want to come and see our facilities, please do give me a call. My number is right on the bottom of that first slide. So tonight, in order, we are going to discuss a report on the results of your unlimited service model, what kind of garbage is being hauled out, a discussion of the recycling market, and then information about your annual contract and rate adjustments. Slide 3. Currently, West Richland has unlimited service. This means that you can put any household waste out on the curb. That includes mattresses, furniture, couches, washing machines. Now, if you happen to have a specialized service, like a refrigerator that's got Freon in it, we will pick that up for you, but we will charge you to take the Freon out. The good news is we do it at cost. We do not upcharge you for it. We just charge you what it costs us, and we will still pick that up. We do ask that if you are going to be putting bulky items out and you know it in advance, that you call us, because it will speed up your service delivery. Otherwise, what's going to happen is the driver is going to see it and then he's going to call it in and then might have to send a separate truck in later. So if you let us know in advance, you'll have more timely service. I also want to mention that if you find yourself in a position where you routinely need a second or a third cart, like I do, because our garden is going gangbusters right now, it's only $4.68 for each additional cart. My neighbors have 4, rather than a duplication of the original $26.78 that you pay for the first cart. The reason we make this a minimal charge is because it is faster, it's more efficient, and it's safer for our drivers if they can run down your road, drive slowly down your road, pick up a cart mechanically and put it into the truck versus stopping truck, getting out and hand carrying it in. Slide 4. It's no surprise to anyone in this room that West Richland is growing, and this slide clearly shows that Basin is hauling increased tonnage year over year, and your number of residential and commercial accounts are increasing. You had a 5% change in residential accounts between 2021 and 2022, and a 19% increase in residential tonnage. During the same period, we saw a 6% increase in the number of commercial accounts and a 27% increase in tonnage. Slide 5, here's a graphical representation just of your account growth. So there you can see more residents and more commercial businesses. Slide 6, please. I don't know about you, but Basin is getting lots and lots and lots of requests for recycling. Adding recycling services is a council decision, and there are some things that you probably should be aware of when you get these phone calls from your customers so you can give them the best information. The first thing you need to know is in 2022, the Washington State Legislature passed the Organics Management Act. This act requires that 75% of all organics have to be diverted from landfills by 2025. Currently, cities with a population of under 25,000 have been exempted, so West Richland has just been off the hook for a little bit. But there are refinements being made to that act this year, as well as federal legislation that's being considered, which may impact your organic future. I will just step back a second and say the city of Pasco is not exempt, and our nearest compost facility is Spokane. So this is going to be an interesting dance. For our planning purposes, Basin is anticipating that all municipalities are going to eventually have to keep their organics out of landfills. So we are proactively exploring the best regional approach for our area, with the belief that the more people who help defray the cost of those very expensive facilities, the easier it is for our citizens to adjust to these new laws and their cost structures. A second piece of legislation I want to make you aware of, it failed last year. They've brought it back next year, and they've given the indication that they will keep running it until they do pass it, is the Washington Recycle and Packaging Act, also known as the WRAP Act. The goal of the WRAP Act is to recycle everything and make the producers of non-recyclable materials pay for them. WRAP has some great goals, but as it was structured last year, it lacked clear market signals to the producers who would have been in charge of determining the success metrics, and also given unlimited access to consumer pocketbooks, because they could just pass through any fees in the products that they make without ever having to adjust their packaging. So I want you to think about the low carbon fuel tax and its impact on your gas bill. Did it change how many gallons of gas you needed to get to work? Probably not, but it did change the price at which you buy gas. There are some possible solutions. We are working with the Zero Waste Washington and the people that are working with these RAP acts. One of the things we have suggested is perhaps what you do is you make producers responsible for non-recyclable materials by making them purchase anything that comes through the MRF and can't be sold. If they have to take a product that can't be sold to market and they have to warehouse it, that will be a clear price signal that, hey, it's cost money to store stuff. Maybe we need to change something. The other thing that our association has been advocating for 15 years is truth in labeling on all packaging. So a consumer who goes into the grocery store can look at 2 products and say, well, this one's got recyclable packaging and this one doesn't. I might choose to buy this one instead. You don't really have that option at this time. The little numbers that are on the bottom of your things, all that tells you is what kind of plastic went into the package. It does not tell you that it's recyclable, but that's a big misconception in the public. I want you to know the Basin is in favor of recycling. Some people say, oh, you just don't want to do it. That is not true. We do want to recycle. We live on this planet too. We have children, we have grandchildren, but we do want to remind people that this is a real world market and it impacts the cost of recycling. Currently, we don't have any buyers for plastics 3, 4, 6, or 7. And when we do have buyers, there is a disproportionate cost for those who live farthest away from recycling markets. So for instance, if you decided today you wanted to recycle glass, our nearest market is Portland or Tacoma or Seattle. 2 cautionary notes. Something I'm starting to hear kind of float up into the stratosphere is people want to see landfills go away at all. We have people that are promising if you recycle everything, you don't have to have a garbage can. And I just want to say landfills are a really good thing. Anybody who's ever traveled to a country where they do not have landfills would certainly agree with me. Landfills protect your health and safety. They keep plastics from floating across the landscape. They are highly regulated and they are monitored. Their leachate is collected, it's measured, it's kept out of your groundwater. Landfills are a real success story in America. If something cannot be recycled, then it should be landfilled. And in the best of all possible worlds, it would be landfilled before you sent it through a MRF, which is a manufacturing reuse facility. You would say, we know this can't be recycled, truth in labeling. We're just going to send it off to the landfill. We're not going to send it through the whole expensive process of sorting it. And you can see on your slide on the right-hand side, it's $54.72 to put something in the landfill. It's $138 a ton this month to run it through a manufacturing recycling facility. And then whatever comes out the end that can't be recycled, you still pay the landfilling cost. So as you can see, it's very expensive to take something through the landfill or the recycling process if it actually can't be recycled. The last thing is, please be aware of anybody who tells you somebody else is going to pay for it. There is not and never has been any free lunch. So there are cities I've been visiting with who go, yeah, but they're all going to pay for everything. You know, don't believe it. Nothing's ever free. Next slide, please. So now we're going to talk about what recycling really looks like. And the number one thing I want to say to you is it is volatile. Garbage is so boring. We can tell you what it's going to cost all year long. There'll be a very mild bump next year and a mild bump next year unless inflation goes crazy and we have to raise your fuel prices. But really, garbage is pretty predictable. That is not the case with recycling. So the first thing I want to draw your attention to is that green line running down the middle of that graph. Anything that is at that line is 0. You don't pay to recycle and you don't get paid to recycle. You're at 0 balance. Anything below that blue line means you are paying somebody to take your recycling and do something with it. The blue line, which looks really good, everybody always gets excited about that, is for cardboard, but that is not the cardboard you leave out in your city plan. This is for very specialized plants like AutoZone, packing plants, where they guarantee the markets are going to that cardboard is absolutely crystal clean. There are no pizza boxes in that cardboard market, and you don't have access to it. So your cardboard would be put in the gray line, which is your commingled residential recycling. And that also includes your plastics 1 and 2, mixed paper, tin, and aluminum cans. Aluminum cans, by the way, are also very depressed right now. So there's no market for those either. And then the orange middle line shows mixed paper prices. Many of your citizens are asking for a recycling service, and Basin is happy to provide those services if you as a council choose them. But in the event that you decide to do that, we will break out on our bills and for your staff the cost. You'll know what your garbage cost is, and you will know what your recycling cost is. And we do that for a very specific reason. We want you as the customer to know where that volatility is and be able to make sound decisions. If the market disappears and there is no market, we want you to have the choice to say, hey, it's been a year, it's negative, let's knock that off. Number 8. There's a lot of legislation, I mentioned both federal and statewide, being enacted, which is going to have massive changes on the marketplace. With our country's desire to move away from fossil fuels, markets are being disrupted just as significantly as when we move from the horse and buggy to the automobile. Basin is planning for these changes, but we want you, the consumer, to be aware that these changes are going to impact your cost of service. When Basin sets your rates, there are 2 sets of factors we consider. So on one side, you can see all of the external triggers over which we have no control whatsoever. Basin does not control inflation and your consumer price index. We don't control your disposal fees. Currently, West Richland has all of their garbage taken to our transfer station, and then we take it down to Findlay Buttes. If Findlay Buttes says, hey, we're raising the price per ton, we pass that through to you directly. We don't put an upcharge on it, but we do directly pass that through to you. Fuel's a big one. We do not control the fuel market, and we do have a fuel surcharge built into your current contract. But Washington passed the low carbon fuel index, and our fuel indexes that we've put in your contract do not capture that extra 63 cents a gallon that we're being charged for diesel. So at this point in time, you are getting a great deal on fuel. Legislative requirements. Washington State is adopting pretty much verbatim everything that California has done. That means combustion engine standards have been already put in place. They've set a goal of ending the sale of all new gas-powered vehicles by 2035. That is not very long to change an industry from combustion to EV. And then there's also the people that say, wait, you really want to go with hydrogen instead. So normally what this means when we know there's this kind of a change coming to our company, we would already be purchasing the first vehicles to start integrating them in so that our cost structures were just gradually rising. But unfortunately, there are no vehicles available to us right now. And once they are available, California is going to be in line first. And in the scheme of things, we're a very, very small company. So you're going to see Waste Management, Republic, they're going to get all the vehicles first. We're not quite sure how we're going to comply with these rules, but when we do, it will be pretty abrupt. The change in the pricing is going to be more abrupt, not by our choice, but just unless the timelines slip, we don't have a choice. So let's talk about the prices that Basin can control, because there are some things we can control. We control how we structure our service routes. We can control what we pay our drivers, how many we hire. We control our internal efficiencies. And we also we now own the transfer station in Pasco, so we can control that cost per ton. So these are all the factors that we use in setting your rates in a general rate case. Next slide, please. Your contract was last signed in 2017, and it says that we can increase annually the CPI by 90%. In a low inflationary environment, this is fantastic for all of us. But what it means is we're losing 10% of our buying power every year. And in a high inflationary environment, this becomes problematic. So what you are going to see is that we are doing rate cases with every customer we have. I think every public entity is doing the same. We're currently working with the UTC to do rate case for our customers. So you're assured that you're getting proper rates. There's oversight of what we do. And again, this is the same process that your water and utility and probably your police uses to figure out what is the cost of your actual budget. Because we have not completed our rate case yet, we're asking for you to delay our annual CPI increase so that we don't send your customers one rate in January and then send them another one in March. Let me be clear, your rates will go up. but we want to get that rate right the first time we send out a notice to the customers. And that is the end of my presentation. So I am more than willing to take any questions that you have.
Thank you, Rebecca. Great presentation. Boy, it's really an eye opener when you take a look at recycling aspects of it and the volatility. And we do get a lot of questions from citizens, especially new people that have moved in, don't understand that we're contracted, we could contract with Ed's Disposal, and they use their explanation. Well, when I lived here, well, the game's a little bit different. So you laid it out in black and white, very easy to understand. And I certainly do thank you for it. Council, you have any questions, Rebecca? Councilmember Moran?
Thank you very much. I just had a few questions, and would you prefer get them one at a time or
Let's do one at a time.
one at a time? Okay. The first one, probably real simple. I was just wondering, with refrigerators, freezers, things that have Freon in them, we would have to call ahead and we would be told for this particular thing, it would cost this much, and can those items have things in them? I've been asked this before.
Oh, like food,
Or liquid waste.
liquid waste? I think again, that's just whatever the cost is of taking it out and disposing of it.
Sure. No, that's fine. I just didn't know if it was a flat rate.
Oh,
for
it is a
what
flat
was
rate,
based off.
yes.
Okay. The other question I had, I noticed in that graph that in around September 2021, that everything being recycled had made some sort of a profit for those that were recycling. What happened there?
I have no idea, but there were 3 months where everything was going gangbusters. But 3 months out of 82 is not very many months. So I don't know if there was some shortage. I do not know what happened there.
Actually, that's all I had. Thank you.
I wanted to express my thanks for you taking over chairmanship of the SWAC.
And I'm so glad you're still there to keep me on track.
Because of, just the involvement, it would have totally overcome my ability to engage this scope. So I do want to appreciate your involvement in this aspect. Thank you.
I would just like to say Councilmember Bloom is being much too modest. He is quite capable of doing the full totality, but it is a changing thing. We had a very serious discussion about, okay, what are we going to do with batteries? Because all those EVs that are floating around, we're hoping the car companies take them because we don't really have a plan at this point, but there's a changing marketplace here.
Well, I promised the last SWAC meeting, and I did find it. I was going to send the video from Li-Cycle, which is a lithium recycling place down in, it just opened down in Arizona, which shows them eating the car batteries and things of that nature. But also I look back, they had a big fire in 2021 as well. So my biggest fear of we will be opening the moderate risk waste facility shortly. But my biggest fear is the management of lithium batteries, because that's just such a fire risk. So.
Thank you for your comments, Councilman Smart.
Thank you. Excellent presentation. And my question is, with our other recycling facilities that we have, with the numbers and the fact that we're probably doesn't look like we're profiting off of these recyclables. Can you advise us as to how, does it make any sense for us to have these recycling centers in town? Are the materials actually going to recycle, or are they just, since there's no market for them, are they just ending up in the landfill?
So if we tell you we're recycling, both Waste Management, who serves on the SWAC, and us, we will recycle them. But what will happen is, if you don't have a market, it has to be stored. And so at this point in time, once we send it to the manufacturing reuse facility, it becomes their baby, and they have that built into their prices, and they will store it until there is a market. So I think the other thing that you will find people saying is, So for instance, sand. People want to recycle glass. I love this example because Walla Walla just did a study. If you take a loaded truck of glass from Walla Walla to SMI in Seattle, it's going to cost you $1,800. That's what it costs for the truck, the driver, the fuel. They will pay you $450 at the door. So if you choose to do this, then that truck driver is going to come back and say, hey, Walla Walla, I still need $1,350. The question is it better for the community not to mine the sand out of wherever they get it and recycle it, which costs more? Or is it better to just use the cheapest product, which sand is pretty cheap? And I'm not in a position to make those decisions, but those are the kinds of questions people are asking is, so what's the other side of that equation that we can't see on our side of the curtain?
Because I would cite something like aluminum, which comes from the earth as well. And if you're building a lot of airplanes, I would think it would be a valuable resource. But if it's a negative on that chart, it looks to me like that means that it's cheaper just to mine new aluminum and make it from scratch rather than, and I don't have a problem, honestly, burying an aluminum can. I mean, it's not an environmental hazard. So I just think this is a really educational presentation that you've provided. I very much appreciate it. So thank you.
I think you're welcome. I think what you're going to see is businesses are looking at, here's the recycled product and here's the virgin product. It's a lot cheaper to buy that. I make better profit margin. I can sell my things at a more competitive price if I don't do the recycled. But you're going to see legislation coming down now that mandates that you have so much, and that will also change this market. I don't know when that will happen. My crystal ball says it's coming. There's a lot of discussion. I also, Mayor Brent, wanted to just say, when you have people come into this community and they say to you, hey, we did this in Seattle, we did this in Olympia, we did this. Most companies don't break out the costs of recycling, so they have no idea. They do not know what it costs to recycle. They just think it's all one price. So that's been a disservice, I think, to the public where we've masked it.
Councilmember Stoker?
Yes, so my recollection is you were saying it was around 65 cents a gallon for the carbon tax that.
Currently, we're paying, diesel's that much higher than what we're charging you, yes.
So, and this may be more towards the mayor and Roscoe, is there any consideration then for adjusting our contract to allow them to be able to recapture that cost? Because that's again, it's a legislative mandate that private entities shouldn't have to bear without consideration to the public who voted for that legislation. And I think the public needs to feel what their vote costs them.
Yeah, so that's in the works to amend their contract for it. For now, as we can say is thank you for the
Not
discount.
disagreeing with
But
that at all.
the discount's going to end shortly, so it's in the works to correct that.
That's one of the reasons we're doing these rate cases, and it's very definitely, Mr. Slade knows that's definitely one of the things we're going to be talking about.
That's not an easy process. There's a lot of back and forth and analysis that goes on with it. I've seen Rebecca and staff in the council or in the conference room many times over the last few months, and sometimes in the later hours of the evening too. So we're working for you as well as what you do for our citizens. So thank you.
You've got a great staff to work with, so it's always a pleasure.
Councilman Bloom, one more time.
I just wanted to comment back on the aluminum. There was a individual who decided to corner the aluminum can market and was hoarding crushed aluminum cans. And there was a antitrust that went out against them. And I think that's what's happened to the price is they forced him to release his stockpile because he was
Interesting.
warehousing a huge amount. So, so the whole market is very weird, to say the least. So I'll just add that to it.
One of the other reasons that we opposed the WRAP Act was they were going to do a bottle bill with cans, but the cans, you had to deliver them to very specific sites. You couldn't put them in with your curbside stuff, and you only got your money back if you took them to specific sites, and they couldn't be crushed. So if you were a person on a bus, You had to take your uncrushed aluminum cans, and there were only going to be, I think there's 185 cities in Washington, and there were only going to be 183 sites. So some people wouldn't even have them locally. So, it was a first run, and we're working to help them refine that.
Rebecca, you are spot on. We do have an amazing staff and we appreciate everything they do. So thank you, Roscoe, Eric, Aaron, Chief, Commander, and everybody that is involved in our city staff, as well as Stephanie, who keeps us all together. So, Rebecca, very good presentation. Again, thank you so much. And we'll be seeing you soon, I'm sure.
Well, thank you for your time. I have another meeting to be at in Prosser. So if you want to get hold of me, my number's on that slide. I'd be glad to answer any questions or
Guarantee
talk
the
with you.
traffic is a lot nicer between here and Prosser than the Blue Bridge.
Thank
Safe
you.
travels. Thank you again. Much appreciated. All right, council, and our second presentation this evening is a presentation regarding the Attendance Matters Month that was previously approved by you. So I will read the proclamation. Whereas good attendance in school remains essential to student achievement and progress toward graduation, and whereas chronic absence missing 10%, 2 or 3 days a month or more is predictive of academic trouble and dropout rates, and weakens our communities and local economy. And whereas all students, even those who sign up regularly, are affected by chronic absence because teachers must spend time reviewing for students who have missed lessons. And whereas student absenteeism can be significantly reduced when schools, parents, and communities work together to monitor and promote good attendance and address hurdles that keep children from participating in schools. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Brent Gary, Mayor of the City of West Richland, Washington, and the City Council will stand with the nation in recognizing September as Attendance Awareness Month. Our City Council hereby reaffirms its commitment to the academic success of all students. We also encourage all members of our community to focus on reducing absenteeism to give all children an equal opportunity to learn, grow, and thrive. And is there anyone here from the audience to receive this presentation this evening? Seeing no one, we will make sure that it gets into the right hands. So thank you, Council, for approving this presentation. Okay, with that, we will go ahead and move on to our consent agenda this evening, which consists of payment of the bills, approval of the minutes of the regular meeting September 5th, 2023, Resolution 5823, setting a public hearing date to consider a petition for a frontage improvement waiver for Van Giesen SR 224 on North 58 Place, with the address being 5811 Van Giesen. Resolution 5923, resolution to set a public hearing for vacation 002-2023 Inspired Home Designs LLC. Resolution 6023, resolution to set a public hearing for vacation 003-2023 Newman. An ordinance 2023 amending the West Richland Municipal Code 17.13.030 to allow public agricultural facilities as a conditional use in commercial limited zones and remove it from the commercial general zone. And with that, is there anyone from the audience who'd like to speak to the consent agenda this evening? Seeing no one here in person, do you see anybody virtually that has their hand raised or *9 on a phone, Stephanie?
I do not.
With that, council, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda this evening?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you, council. This brings it to the first opportunity for citizen public comment for items that are not on the agenda. And if you'd like to provide comments to council, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Anyone locally? Nobody in-house here? Stephanie, sir, okay. Yes, state your name and address for record, and 3 minutes to address council, reminding you we do not have interacting conversation back and forth with council in their presentation.
Yep. My name is Dan Evans. Live at 3505 Clear Lake Court in West Richland here. I'm president of Greater Richland Little League. I've been in this room a few times over the years before you guys or before the park board, and usually I'm asking for something. Today, I really came to say thank you. A few years ago, we started a project up at the Bobbing Range Sporting Complex to improve some of the safety up there. We had some foul ball netting we wanted to install. We did some bleacher replacements and such. We were just about ready to install that foul ball netting in, I think it was about March of 2020. And the state shut down non-essential construction. And so it has sat until this last week when we finally finished that project. I want to say thank you to all of you guys for your support. Especially I want to thank the Public Works group and especially Jeremy Gwynn, who went above and beyond kind of fitting in with our volunteer schedules. Sometimes it's last minute saying, hey, Jeremy, we got a few guys ready for Friday. Can we get out there and do some work? And he was always able to help us there. And we really, really appreciate that. We kind of pride ourselves at Little League being a community-based organization where everybody that plays in Little League really comes from the neighborhoods around those fields and such. And we value that partnership with the families and then with the city as well, as we provide that service of youth sports to the community. So anyway, again, I just wanted to say thank you. Next year, we have been asked to host the 11-year-old state tournament for the state of Washington out here at these fields. So we're looking at really trying to make them as pretty as we can for between now and next July or August. We're really going to be out there doing our best trying to keep the playing surface really, really nice. So again, thank you. And if you get an opportunity to come out there and see the overhead net that protects the fans and such from foul balls hitting them in the head, I encourage you to come out there and take a look. Thanks.
Thank you. And we certainly appreciate the relationship we have with Gil and everything that you do for us. It's not very often that city council gets a thank you and the staff gets a thank you. So it's very much appreciated, sir. And share that with all of the Gil parties. Thank you. With that, we will go ahead and if there's no one else, do we have anybody virtually that you see, Stephanie? Hand up or star 9? I see no one.
Nor do I.
We'll go ahead and move on to ordinance resolutions, motions, and public hearings. Item 8A is an ordinance amending the 2023-2024 biennial budget. With that, I'll turn it over to Finance Director Erin Gwynn to present her staff report this evening.
All right. Thank you, Mayor Gary. Good evening, council, citizens. This evening, I'm presenting the 6th budget amendment for the 23-24 biennial budget. This budget amendment contains 2 items that involves 3 funds. The first item is for the streetlight Rome retrofit project. On July 18th, City Council authorized a budget amendment to transfer $200,000 from the general fund to the street fund. It was anticipated that $200,000 would allow the city to purchase about half the replacement nodes required and would take city crews several months to completely change the nodes out. The city engineer was able to negotiate a better price and able to procure about 3/4 of the nodes required with those funds. In addition, city staff, along with Benton REA, was able to complete the replacement of the nodes in a short amount of time. In order to finish the project, another $60,000 is needed to purchase the remaining nodes at the same discounted price that the city engineer already negotiated. In order to have a net zero effect on the general fund, we are reducing the Raceway irrigation project budget by $60,000 and increasing the transfer out to the 101 street fund by $60,000. And in the 101 street fund, we would recognize the additional revenue as well as increase the appropriations by $60,000 for the streetlight Rome retrofit. The second item in this budget amendment is in the 401 Water Sewer Operating Fund. The original 2023-2024 budget had $1,492,000 budgeted for 3 projects. One was Bombing Range Road Keene intersection project, the North 62nd Avenue project. Both of those were federal grant projects that took priority, and the costs of of the water main portion of that. Each project came in well over due to costs of materials mostly. The third one on our list was the Chelan Arlington Water Main project. In order to complete that, we need $354,000 additional in that budget line. And this budget amendment does that, takes it from the ending fund balance. Staff recommends passing the ordinance. This amendment authorizes an increase in the 2023-2024 appropriations in the amount of $414,000 and an increase in total resources in the amount of $60,000, bringing the revised budget total to $138,585,513.
Thank you, Aaron. Is there anyone from the audience who'd like to speak to this agenda item this evening? I see no one. And if anyone virtually would like to speak to an agenda item, please raise your virtual hand or *9 if you're by phone. I see no one virtually. Stephanie, do you?
I do not.
Council, may I have a motion, please?
I move to pass ordinance 2123, amending the city of West Richland's 2023-2024 biennial budget.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Council, any questions that haven't been provided in the staff report? You might have of Aaron or any related staffers. Councilmember Bloom?
What is the impact of deferring the irrigation project at the racetrack?
Currently, some of that property is being negotiated. It may sell, so it may not be farmed. So we put that project on hold. I didn't want to do an irrigation well when there was no need for irrigation. So pending the negotiations of that property, we may not be redoing that well.
Thank you.
Councilmember Stoker?
Well, I just want to say kudos for getting a reduced rate on those modules. That's pretty awesome. So please pass that on, at least for me. I think the council would agree that spending less money and getting more done is great.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Andrew Woodruff, our city engineer. I mean, I didn't realize he had used car salesman skills, but he did. I mean, this fantastic deal on it. So yeah, kudos to him for pushing for that.
Councilmember Moran?
Thank you. I was just wondering, with the 60,000 removed from the funding for the irrigation at the racetrack, how much is there anything then left that, or was that the only amount set aside for that specifically?
No, there was, I think that one was a total of 350,000.
So then if we didn't use that for the racetrack irrigation, then it would come back into, is that general fund?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
No other questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you, council. With that unfinished business this evening, we have none, or do we have any new business? So this is another opportunity for citizen public comment. If you'd like to address council, you could local or in-house here, come to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Seeing no one jumping at the task here. Virtually, I see any *9 or raised hands virtually. I see no one. Stephanie, do you see anyone?
I do not see anyone, no.
With that, then we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna roll into staff and council comments and reports. We'll go ahead. Anybody from the staff side has things this evening? Chief Grego.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council. Just want to remind everybody, I'll be heading out of town this weekend for the academy. Commander Kelly will be the acting chief while I'm gone. You're in great hands. Again, Officer Riojas graduated last week, so that's done. I'm really proud of him. He did a really great job at the academy, and I know he represented us well. Also, October 31st this year, the police department will be holding a Halloween haunted house. It'll be portioned off. Younger kids will be an easy haunted house. There'll be another one that's really scary. Anyway, Commander Coast is going to be running that show. We have help from the Community Care Foundation as well as other volunteers. So thank you for that. We appreciate it. So come on out. Last year, I think we advertised very little, but we had a huge turnout. So they're looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. No other staff this evening? Council comments? Councilmember Moran?
Thank you. So on the 15th, there was a Benton Franklin Council of Governments meeting, and presented was at the beginning of the meeting, the Tri-Cities Strategic Alliance, which is pretty much what My Tri 2030 was. They came together and decided they wanted to change it up a little bit. And right now they're still finalizing some things. So what they had asked was that I don't present fully what they had said because it's still kind of warm jello, basically, but close to wet concrete level. But the Tri-Cities Strategic Alliance is a combination of the Tri-Cities Regional Chamber of Commerce, Visit Tri-Cities, TriDec, and the Benton Franklin Council of Governments. And from what I saw, the plan that they've got going forward looks like it's going to be pretty good for the region as a whole. And I'm very excited for that. So look for more on that in the future. Otherwise, we did approve the Transportation Improvement Plan amendment that went through. And there's also the open house for the Transportation Improvement Plan draft for the 2024-2027. That open house is happening tomorrow from 3 to 5. And they're also accepting comments as of August 23rd through October 7th. We also talked about the congestive management process update that is happening every 4 years. Safe routes to school was mentioned. There is a Benton Franklin Regional Survey that's open until December 22nd that folks can go to the Benton Franklin Council of Government website to take. And the more that take this, the better. That way they can see where all people are needing help with their kids going to school. We discussed the ARPA grant program. The September focus is actually finding grant eligible projects at the EDA Department of Commerce and the Department of Commerce for Washington State. Sorry, pages stuck together. And we also talked about the Community Economic Development Strategy Plan for 2023. There was an update that we're talking about. And finally, we discussed the budget, which is really the big thing. So the budget has gone up some, but the good news is that they're actually going to be in the black finally, which is really great. And it looked like the cost for West Richland doesn't seem to be going up much. The cost for 2023 for being a member was $9,647, and it's not even going up $200 more for 2024, and it's going to be a total of $9,823. And there is also discussion about Ben Franklin Council of Government Carbon Reduction Program Call for Projects guidebook that's coming out. So the next meeting for that, this group is October 20th at 10 a.m. and it's a hybrid. And that's all I got.
Beto?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple things. Veterans Day Parade is on Veterans Day, November 11th. The chamber will be reaching out to get a list of members from the council who would like to participate in riding on Mustangs. So please let Stephanie know. I'm assuming Paul will be reaching out here pretty soon. And then and finally, thank you for getting those nets up. So I coached a grill for 1 year with Enderlin and 4 years on my own. I was on the board. I know it's a lot of work. It's a labor of love. But I've seen people get hit by foul balls. And so thank you for getting that finally up and taken care of. Thank you.
Councilmember Hayes?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just want to give a heads up that our Chunkin' Punkin' Festival that was going to be November 4th, we're postponing till next year. It just was coming too fast and we only had 3 teams signed up. And we need a few more than 3 teams, but we have a lot of sponsors and teams that are really excited. We're hoping to do some training on how to build everything for this festival. So I'm working with Lacey at the Raceway to see what dates they have available that we can do the Punkin' Chunkin' Festival through the foundation. So I just wanted everybody to know that. And then I just want to say I'm really looking forward to the haunted house on October 31st. And I know that they'll probably still be looking for some volunteers that want to like maybe dress up scary or nice for the younger ones and be part of it. And it should be lots of fun. Last year was a huge success. And so everything we can do to support the police department is wonderful. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Councilmember Bloom?
I just wanted to follow up on Rebecca's her unbelievable effort on this, and we are really benefiting from our relationship with Basin Disposal, Ed's, because they have to solve the problems for Pasco. Richland is looking at possibly expanding their green waste approach. From a practical standpoint, the experience Richland has had on green waste has been mixed. I mean, it's an option for people, but you know, you still get the frozen grass in the things that won't come out. But I will come back and tell you that I'm aware of, if somebody decides we're going to do our own green waste, I know 2 municipalities that in the middle of winter, as soon as that green waste gets covered with snow, they end up with a fire. So if you were here long ago of the Goat Ladies fire, it's for us to do it is not something that we can do. We have to find a regional solution.
Councilmember Stoker?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also wanted to add to Councilmember Fetto that I appreciate the foul nets. It's been a while since I've worked with Grill. I coached for 3 years, but I have 4 daughters, so I spent most of my time with the Tri-Cities Fast Pitch Softball Association, and they've had those. So it's nice to be protected in the crowd from those things. So kudos to you and the group. Also wanted to extend a belated Constitution Day. Happy Constitution Day to everybody. Constitution Day was on Sunday. So hopefully maybe the rest of this week or the rest of the month, everyone can take an opportunity to review our supreme law of our land, our basic charter, and become more familiar with it again. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And I'll just chime in. Yeah, I appreciate that, Councilmember Stoker. We are a constitutional republic, and I'm thankful for that every day. I had some time, got to spend some time on the west side of our state last week on vacation. And I think that one of the things I just thought I'd mention is how thankful I am that I live in West Richland. I mean, we went to one of the larger cities in our state, shall remain unnamed, where they have a large public market. We got to experience all kinds of things like open consumption of marijuana, which was filling the air so thick that it was difficult to stand. We got to experience feeling unsafe traveling more than about 500 feet away from the large public market, where there were people who were in all sorts of drugs and wayward souls that we just really didn't want to come across. The drugs on the streets in that city are out of control. I want to thank the police, the chief, your staff for making sure that we don't become that. And boy, there is no better way to realize how important keeping our city safe and clean and drug-free than to just go just spend a few hours in a location like that. We even spent some time at the home of Microsoft, and the problem doesn't end at the farmer's marketplace, right? It goes forever. It's just endemic, and the homelessness and so forth is terrible. It just is a huge reminder on how important it is to keep our students and our community drug-free. The illicit drug use is a scourge on our society, and we need to do everything we can to prevent that from happening here. And I just appreciate your efforts. So thank you, council and our police. And I just, like I said, I'm thankful that I live in West Richland. The Tri-Cities is a great place, no matter how many hot days in the summer we had, right? So, and windstorms.
Thank you, sir.
Take those any day over those problems. Yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem Brink, closing out this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too am thankful to live in West Richland, having lived in about 13 different cities over my life. So I appreciate Councilmember Smart's comments. Just 3 items. As most of you are aware, I sit on the Board of Directors for the Association of Washington Cities. I'm going to be attending a retreat and Board of Directors meeting for the next couple of days, Wednesday through Friday. One of the things that we will consider is the AWC's legislative priorities for the upcoming session of the legislature next year. And I'm pleased that our very diverse group of individuals, representatives from across the state that put together this list came together on a few important topics that we're going to consider for the board. The number 1 recommendation was public safety, officer recruitment and retention. That was the number 1 priority that this committee addressed, and ensuring additional funds to support officer recruitment and retention. Infrastructure investment was another topic. Ensuring that the city's infrastructures, particularly for operations and maintenance, transportation can be addressed. Behavioral health and drug possession, drug use, some of the other topics were considered. So I look forward to having discussions on these important priorities with my fellow board members later on this week. Second thing I'll announce, December 9th, the city of West Richland is going to host the Elected Officials Essentials Training, which is required under state law for all elected and appointed officials, either within 90 days of taking office or every 4 years. But it's going to be at the West Richland Police Station. And I really want to thank the support of Mayor Gary, of Chief Grego, City Clerk Haugen, so forth, for working together to help bring this, because we're the only city within the Tri-Cities that is going to be hosting this. And I can't think of a better venue than our new police station. So thanks to staff for supporting this. Last thing I'll mention tonight, please bear with me. I just want to congratulate fellow Councilmember Moran. She did complete the requirements for her advanced certificate of municipal leadership earlier this week, and that recognizes city officials for training and proven performance in 5 competencies, including legal requirements, public sector resource management, community planning, local leadership, diversity, equity, inclusion. And of particular note, Councilmember Moran is only the 3rd elected official in West Richland to achieve that accomplishment. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. There will be a formal presentation by AWC later, but congratulations, Councilmember.
So congratulations, Councilmember Moran. And I see no one else, so we're going to dive into an executive session this evening pursuant of RCW 42-30-110-1C to consider minimum price for which real estate can be offered for sale or lease. So that is going to be a 15-minute executive session with no action to follow this evening. So council, if you would please adjourn into the conference room, and we'll ask Mr. Ellsworth to join us. Balled up. Look, she's already ready to bolt. You can stand, that's fine. All right, is everybody back in? Stephanie's here. All right, with that, council, thank you very much for your time this evening. We'll adjourn this meeting at 7:18.